All right, if you give me the shout, Chris, when you're ready.
Yeah, ready to rock.
Okay, by all means, start presenting when you want to, and I'll do a quick intro to you guys.
Cool. Whoops, let's move that there.
Okay.
Oh, here you are.
Morning, Brett. Ready to go?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. So this is the Microsoft roadmap session, which we've had at the in-person user groups and the virtual user groups for the past couple of years now. So this is where Microsoft's come along and tell us about what they've got coming up in the next 3 months, 6 months, recent stuff that's been released, whatever it might be. Always an interesting and fun session, and you can ask questions along the way if you like. And if you want to do that, drop those questions in the chat or raise your hand and we will get to you. But this is Chris Huntingford, Kaila Bloomfield and Lucy Bourne from Microsoft. They're going to cover all of the different areas of Dynamics 365 and Power Platform in terms of the roadmap coming up. A few kind of points of admin. If you're not muted already, if you could do that, please, that'd be great. Except you, Chris, obviously, because we don't get the echo and that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you want to, as you join a session throughout the day, if you could make sure you're muted, that'd be great. If you do want to ask questions, absolutely go ahead. We'll keep an eye on the chat as we go through, and either you can come off mute, raise your hand and come off mute and ask a question at an appropriate time, or we will invite you to do that or ask the presenter themselves at a time that it fits in with what they're talking about. So yeah, without further ado, then in that case, let's move over to Chris and do the Microsoft roadmap session. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Andy. So I can confirm that I think my two colleagues may be in the wrong meeting, so this is going to be really hilarious. Anyway, hey everyone, I'm Chris. I'm a partner technical architect here at Microsoft, and yeah, my role is to focus on D365 customer engagement as well as the Power Platform, primarily the Power Platform. And yeah, I wasn't sure if this was like the virtual Reading user group or the virtual Samoa user group or the virtual London user group, so I went with Reading on this, this example. But yeah, so really excited to be here. Andy, Ferridan, and the rest of the team, thanks so much for having me. I don't know Kaila and Lucy have managed to get in yet, so I'm going to throw caution into the wind and just move on to the next slide and hope for the best. Yeah, so introductions. Lucy Alice Bourne, otherwise known as Lubo, is effectively the partner development manager at Microsoft, focusing on independent software vendors. She'll be talking quite a bit about some of the things she's been focusing on. We've got Kaila Bloomfield, one of my colleagues working in the technical architecture team, who's going to be focusing primarily on things like project operations. And there we go, there's Lucy. She's just joined, hooray.
Oh, hello.
Yay, do you guys want to intro yourselves?
Hello, lovely people. Thank you so much for inviting us to this morning's session. I'm sure Chris has done all that already, and sorry for the delay. We had some lovely Teams issues right at the last minute. I'm Lucy Bourne. I look after partner recruit for business applications in the UK, so working with some of our strategic partners to onboard them into our partner ecosystem. And as Chris was mentioning, today I'm going to be covering off some of our exciting announcements, updates, roadmap features of both project and also customer insights, audience insights, and engagement insights. Thank you for having me.
Cool.
And hello, I'm Kaila Bloomfield, for anyone who doesn't know. I am joining the lovely Andrew today to talk to you all about finance and operations, or finance, supply chain, human resources, commerce, depending on which event you've been to me to listen to. And hopefully I'll try and keep it a little bit entertaining, because sometimes everyone can find the product a little bit dull. So let's try and keep it a bit entertaining.
Cool. All right. So without any further ado, right, we have an agenda. I don't think we've ever stuck to an agenda in our lives. So this, I kind of see like this like a speed limit in the UK. This is more like a guideline, right, to what you should be doing and what we're probably going to be doing. Anywho, so you know what, folks, I've got to tell you, some stuff has happened over the last 6 months, and you know, it's a bit crazy. I know like some strange things have come out, and I just want to let you know, like, honestly, we are here for you 100%. We really, really do understand that, you know, things have changed. We really do. And, you know, as Microsoft, we are here to help you out and make sure that you understand that, you know, these updates are for a reason. They're made for a specific set of users and a specific set of people. And for those of you that don't know why I think this is so funny, this is Ben Vollmer, who heads up our field services in the product group. And the dude just reminds me of Dr. Phil, like every day. He's basically the community psychologist. So if you've never met him, look up Ben. Feel free to harass him, stalk him, whatever you feel necessary. I owe him one for being rude to me yesterday, so this is going to get great. There's going to be a lot of Vollmerisms in this discussion. Anywho, so that aside, right? I know we've gone through what you call, you know, the movie Fight Club. Brad Pitt says we're going through a transitional phase, and you know, on the platform, we've got some really sick stuff, but at the bottom where we've got common data XRM Flexiverse service, one of the things that we've been focusing on quite a lot is trying to figure out what to actually call this thing. Now, common data XRM Flexiverse service is not necessarily the best name for a product. And when you munge all those different names together over the last 5 years, you get something that looks a little like that. So, folks, I'm happy to say finally, we have genuinely settled on a name. So we're calling it Dataverse. Now, yes, I am aware that the term Dataverse does sound like a Marvel character that would, you know, effectively go and support the fighting of crime or the criminal acts against data or the Dataverse. And I think that's quite important, right? So we finally stuck to a name. Let's hope that it doesn't change again. It would be really funny if it did. So hopefully Dataverse will not replace common data XRM Flexi Dataverse or data service. And yeah, I realize that I'm probably going to get into huge amounts of trouble with marketing. So no one post that screenshot on Twitter, please. I'll be receiving another email yet again. Anyway, from marketing's favorite person, there's a couple of things that I'd like to run through, right? So with Dataverse, you know, we released this thing called Project Oakdale, which was this awesome little data storage facility in Teams. And what it did was it took all those pesky SharePoint lists that people use as structured data storage facilities and allows you to, you know, bring that information directly into Project Oakdale. Now, not saying SharePoint's the wrong place to put data, it's just the wrong place for certain data. And we needed that more reliable data structure to allow you to manage that information. So we've given you the ability to take structured relational data and munge it together with collaborative data working directly within Teams. And that really, you know, using the Dataverse within Teams creates this amazing atmosphere in the modern desktop experience, right? Now, that being said, when you take a look at Dataverse, which Dynamics 365 customer engagement solutions are effectively built on, you can assume that Dynamics 365 customer engagement is effectively a Power App, right? And we've taken elements of that and plugged that into Teams. That's really exciting, right? Because now we know that we can get to that information more accurately and more securely in a much more, I'd say, governed and managed way. Now, here's the thing. It's included, Dataverse for Teams is included directly within your Office 365 license. Also, there's a question in the chat, rename changes. Wasn't called Dataflex, the one from Teams, renamed from Project Oakdale? No, so Project Oakdale was effectively the internal code name for Dataflex, and we've reverted back because we got into trouble for calling it Dataflex. Anyway, so that being said, we've gotten our elements of Dataverse, formerly known as the Common Data Service, democratized directly in Teams. All of you guys know that to an extent. Now, a couple of things I want to bring up is that that's fine, but why have we done it? There's a lot of discussion of, yay, we've got relational data structures in Teams, and yay, we can build Power Apps and, you know, do all sorts of things in Teams, but why? Why does it exist? And actually, there's a very good reason as to why it exists. So first things first, when you look at the way that solutions are structured, I don't want to talk about apps anymore. I think apps are one of the digital bricks that work within solutions. So it's never just an app, right? And I think Kaila and Lucy are probably going to laugh at me right now because at this point I normally go on an app rant, but we're not going to do that. We're going to talk solutions. Now here's the thing. When you look at the whole way this thing has been set up, right? The Power Platform supports pretty much any type of solution that you need to implement within a business. I mean, there are things like ERPs and finance systems that you shouldn't build in the Power Platform, Well, you could to an extent, but it's not really the right thing to do. And you would want to go to one of the first-party apps like the ERP solutions. However, when you look at the rest of the landscape, it pretty much does whatever you'd like it to do. Now, taking a look at that, we thought, okay, well, there are some outlying use cases from a licensing perspective where organizations have what you call huge organization-wide solutions. And when I say organization-wide solutions, when I talk about organization-wide solutions, I don't mean complex, okay? Widely used does not mean complex, it means widely used, okay? We needed to have a platform to support those more widely used use cases, okay? So we decided that Dataverse would be the best thing to kind of put in there that's included in your Office 365 license, but promotes large amount of users and user activity. So the example I'll give you is that when I'm looking at a simple business case, I could build that quite easily within a SharePoint data structure. However, what if I've got 10,000 users and that data structure is far more complex? SharePoint becomes not the place to put that data, and you need a middle ground, and that's where Dataverse comes in, or Dataverse for Teams. Now, I'd love to let you know that Dataverse for Teams can be grown up into a Dataverse solution. So when you start getting to the point where that solution is quite complex, you can grow it up into a Dataverse solution, which is effectively Common Data Service. Another thing that's really key is that in no world can a solution that is mission critical and complex cost the same as a solution that is simple, okay? So start thinking of it like that. And when we look at it from a platform perspective, that's what you call promoting the strategic platform growth. All the way from bringing those very basic solutions, growing them up into more widely used solutions, and finally into more complex solutions. So Dataverse is the exact middle ground between SharePoint Microsoft lists effectively, and Dataverse, the more previously known as Common Data Service. As I said, included in your Office 365 license. When you're looking at your targeted solutions, yes, you might find a number of those working within Dataverse, but it's not always going to be the case. So for me, Dataverse is that middle ground. You can have huge amounts of users, but all right, you are going to be hit with some limits, and I'll get to that shortly. So from a licensing perspective, this is my little licensing chart that we built out. This represents only a couple of journeys. So Matt's asked a question, any ETA on when Dataverse for Teams will be promoted to a full-blown Dataverse in the fullness of time. So effectively, when you start looking at the different routes you can go from a licensing perspective, what we found is that, you know, a lot of the time when you go into that middle column, you're going, well, when do I need to use Dataverse? Well, there's a really good use case for it. So when you're starting to look at using standard connectors within M365, there's a lot you can do in there. And I renamed standard connectors to what you call personal team productivity connectors. Okay, that frames it a bit better. So when you're using personal team productivity connectors, right, and you start to think, wow, my solution is growing up, it's getting a bit bigger. Do I need to migrate directly to premium connectors? Well, the answer is no. You can actually start looking at Dataverse, right, or Dataverse for Teams. And using Dataverse for Teams will give you that perfect middle ground from a costing perspective to generate the cost-benefit analysis and use case to allow the business to decide, yes, now this needs to move to premium connectors, or no, this can stay in Dataverse for Teams. And yes, these slides are available, and I'll put the link in the chat. So, and yes, the session is recorded, right? So next up, let's take a look. Now, Lucy and I were chatting earlier, and apparently Lucy said to me that she has a Christmas present for all of you. Now, I know that's super nerdy, but Lucy, do you want to talk a little bit about the Christmas present? I think we lost Lucy there. Oh, wait, we haven't
I'm back.
Yay.
Sorry. I do have a Christmas gift. I mean, I can't take personal responsibility for this gift, but, you know, I'm going to try and do it anyway. But as some of you may have known on our favorite topic of licensing, we recently, and by recently, I mean yesterday, announced perhaps promotional offer. So essentially, this is all born out of the fact that, you know, we appreciate that there's been a whole bunch of changes to the names, a whole bunch of product releases, a whole bunch of essentially positive upheaval. And as a result, to accelerate our growth in the next year, we have launched this promotional offer. And what we're doing is essentially bringing that £10 per user per month license down to, per app per month, per user per month, license down to $3. So giving you a fairly large promotion there, and it's available till June the 30th. So do take advantage of this offer while it's around. I've kept this fantastically detailed slide in so that you can screenshot it so you can understand all the jump through to get it. It's not too complicated, actually. I would take a bit of a deep dive into the detail here, but some calls to action from my side are: take a look at the licensing guide. I'll pop a link to the chat. I'll pop a link in the chat just after we've talked about this slide, and then you can start talking to your customers now. Like, this licensing SKU is available now, and talk to your indirect provider, if you have one, your distributor, West Coast, Inti, Insight, whoever it might be, about how you can access this. And then do feel free to use the MPC, the Partner Centre link at the bottom here, to ask any additional questions that you might have. This really is in there to help accelerate the process of launching the Power Platform into our users. So do take advantage of it. And I shall pop you a link to the blog post where we announced this release in just a second. But thank you, Chris. I'm now taking off my Santa hat.
Awesome. All right. So a couple of other things that were announced quite recently, and actually we need to see more people taking advantage of this. So I'm not an Uber nerd. Like, I'm a nerd, but I'm not an Uber nerd. And I think Uber nerds like Matt Beard would be absolutely clawing at the furniture to get his paws on this. But when we're starting to look at things like connectivity up in Dataverse for Teams, right? One of the things we discovered is that we need to give people more accessibility to data. Now, data to us is digital gold. We know that, right? Everything runs on data. So kind of think about opening up a Power BI report with no data. Okay, not data, no data. It's pointless. It has no use. An app without data is an instruction manual. Okay, so what we want to do is get as much data as we can. So what we did was we have now enabled you to export API management connectors directly into Power Apps, Dataverse for Teams, and build solutions on top of that, so you don't need to build out custom connectors. Whoa, that's freaking awesome. So you're taking data and democratizing it directly into Dataverse for Teams and building apps on top of that. That's bonkers. So, like I said, I don't know the technical intricacies. I haven't tried it yet. I also don't know the technical idiosyncrasies of how this all fits together. Now, what I do know is that because we want data, this is the easiest way to do it, right? And is the best way to give you the opportunity to build out applications. So when people say to me, can I use custom connectors within Dataverse for Teams? No, but you can use API management, right? And that's really important. Another thing that's pretty important is that that's all included directly within your Office license. So just give that a think. Okay. So my good pal Aaron from Transparity, we always have these shindigs on Twitter where we fight about data. It's good fun. And Aaron and I were having another data discussion, and Charles Lamwana responded, "Yep, right on. Power Apps plus Teams plus API management, custom connectors will work in your Office license." Now, you're saying, well, WTF, there's your costing. Yeah, you're going to pay for it, but you're going to pay a small amount to get to that data. So data is digital gold. And because data is digital gold, we want you guys to be able to connect to as much data as possible and build out as many solutions as possible. Yeah, you do need Jaw, right, if you're using finance and operations. So a couple of other things that are pretty important, right? I don't know if you guys have ever had your parents go away on holiday, or you go away on holiday and your kid's sitting at home and you come back and the house is what you call a proverbial, I won't use the word, I'll use mess as an example. Well, you know what? While the parents were away, we decided to play. And here's what happened, right? There's a reason we've done this. So we have, at Microsoft, rebranded and renamed certain things within Dataverse and Dataverse for Teams. Now, I want you all to think about this. On this call right now, this is typically a Dynamics 365 audience that comes to these meetings, okay? Now, I want you to think about this. If at Microsoft, I'm giving you random numbers, never quote me on this. If Dynamics 365 is worth 1 billion, Microsoft 365 is worth 5 billion. Now, that's not a number. It's not a real number. It's something made up, right? Now, please think about this for a second. If Microsoft 365 and data-driven audiences understand the concept of what a table is, but don't understand the concept of what an entity is, we have to design user experiences to help them get access to data. Now, my Dynamics 365 friends on the call, please don't freak out. The fact that we love our entities, we love our attributes, you know what? We've rebranded them to tables and columns. It's not the end of the world, right? Just get used to the rebranding, but it's to enable our friends in the Microsoft 365 and data-driven audiences to help build out as many solutions as possible. So please don't worry too much. Now, I've gone over time, I know, I'm sorry. The next couple of things is that when you're looking at the types of features that you have in Dataverse and Dataverse for Teams, here's your list, right? You've got to start thinking about when to pick what, okay? Now, when you're going for Dataverse for Teams and when you're going for Dataverse, please understand that the concept of like, advanced search and mobile offline and advanced data types within Dataverse for Teams are not going to be available. In Dataverse, they will be. When you're starting to look at things like how to manage environments, I spoke to you about those limitations. Dataverse for Teams, you are limited to 2 gigabytes or 1 million rows. In Dataverse, the largest Dataverse instance I've seen is 6 terabytes, right? Getting there slowly. Security is the biggest thing that we see as a difference between the two. Proper role-based security versus, Teams level security. Very, very important for you to understand that if you're looking at a proper secure, like data obfuscated implementation of a data storage facility, Dataverse is the right go. If you need just a place to put data that you can access quickly, Dataverse for Teams, right? So there's a couple of big differences. I'll put them in there. And then also integration. Dataverse for Teams, you could only use Power Automate or API Manager, whereas Dataverse, you've got everything available to you. So data movement is really key here. So last thing, right? Please just understand, when building out a solution, don't just whack all your data into Dataverse for Teams, or don't just chuckle your data into Dataverse. Using Dataverse for a small solution will work, but that's like buying a Ferrari and driving it 5 meters down the road. So do your cost-benefit analysis. Using Dataverse for Teams for that type of solution is really awesome, and you can grow it up. So just remember, picking the right stack for the right solution is really key, and in Power Platform, we pretty much have it all. So with that, I'm going to pass over to Lucy, and Lucy's going to talk to you about some of the D365 releases.
Chris, sadly, I'm unable to share my screen, so can I just request control on yours? Is that all right?
Yep, don't make it weird though.
Fabulous. I won't make it weird. We'll just, those lovely little icons.
Lucy, sorry, I have made you a presenter now.
Oh, thank you, Bibmeister.
Okay.
In fact, in that case, I will just share. Bear with me. Talk amongst yourselves, lovely people, whilst I do this admin. What Kaila and I are going to be taking you through now, as we mentioned briefly at the start, is really some updates and roadmap items of some slightly unusual product elements of the D365 and business application stack. I think we're quite conscious that we normally really cover off quite a lot of the kind of line by line wave releases, but we gave that to you last time we spoke. So actually we're going to take a slightly different approach this time. And hopefully in a second, you should be able to see my screen. And then I'll be able to go through. Now, whilst I'm waiting for that, I just wanted to point out, I put a link in the chat to the promotion blog post that was released. It's actually on our Microsoft Partner Community website. So as Menon highlighted, you do have to be logged in to be able to consume it. But I'd really encourage you to consider doing that. It's an absolute wealth of information there, so don't be afraid to hop on in. It's well worth it, and I'm not just saying that because that's where I spend most of my time. Cool. So without further ado, project. Now I'm sure many of you be familiar with the concept of project. It's been around, it's probably one of our longest standing products in all honesty, and it is designed to be that simple yet really powerful tool to manage work to manage projects, be it super simple with various stages or ultra complex multi-year programs. And now, as of October, in fact, we have indeed launched 2 products within that Microsoft product stack. So both, Project for Web and Project Online. Bear with me, I'm having real troubles my side, as you can probably tell from my fabulous ad-libbing. Huge apologies. Yeah, so Project Online and Project Online Desktop. And really what I wanted to do is just spend a couple of minutes kind of really going through the difference between the two, and then leaving you with access to some resources to help you get started, because I know some of this will be really quite new to many of you. So Microsoft Project has kind of been revitalized, if you like, and launched onto the market, and contains like a real fresh new experience. It's focused really down onto collaboration. So I think what we recognized was there's a whole bunch of sort of freemium, low entry solutions like Monday.com or Podio that were kind of launched onto the market to really help sort of get started with project management really quickly. So we've actually pivoted our project solution to help really encompass that kind of real sort of like that sort of really get started sort of phase that you might be with your project management. I think one of the things that really sets project apart from many of our other alternative solutions is that it has a huge amount of insight. So it provides much greater visibility across projects, within projects, to both help you understand what's going on now and help better anticipate what's likely to happen in the future. And you'll see that insights word appear quite commonly, not just in what I'm talking about, but across the rest of the business application stack, to really mean actionable insights based out of data that you're providing it with. It's built on a no-code platform, so super easy to get started, very simple, up and running super quickly. Now, Project for the Web, on the other hand, is built completely on the Power Platform. So it combines Power BI dashboards, Power Automate workflows and custom processes, and a selection of Power Apps, both model-driven and Canvas, to really help give you that extensible platform for project management. It is a completely new experience. So it's a brand new product to our stack, and it contains a whole bunch of sort of out-of-the-box dashboards, which I think are incredibly useful, but can also be configured and adjusted, and sits on top of that environment that you guys are all used to, you know, that consistent both model-driven Canvas and Power BI dashboard environment. So it ultimately is designed to take away the need for silo tools. So no longer does each sort of division have like a spreadsheet here, perhaps project in one area, perhaps another tool in another area. It really is designed to help give that simple one-stop shop for project management, both in a team and across an organization, and hopefully takes away the need for that unsecure communication channels, because it integrates directly into Teams, as does many of our other, you know, all of our other capabilities. You can create Teams chats and Teams, Microsoft Teams directly associated to your project in Project for Web. So no longer to WhatsApp or Telegram or Slack or whatever it might be to continue communication on your projects. And ultimately, it's designed to bring together remote teams, which, as we all know, is an absolutely vital part of what we do these days, and we don't see it changing anytime soon. So in terms of resources that are available, I'll leave this slide in the deck so you can access them at a later date, but I think some of the key things to pull out is the first one, actually, so the project plan comparison. So this is where it details line by line what's different between project and Project for Web. So you can understand perhaps where you might want to get started. You might want to start on one, move to the other, start on one, you know, really test them out. There's a whole bunch of training, and also the third line down is really important. This is kind of why it's important to engage with any project management tool over and above perhaps what you're already doing or your customers are already doing. Really that comparison between that on and offline collaborative experience with Excel and perhaps other tools that you're using. And then there is a whole overview on customizing Project for the Web. Really useful. And I've popped in a link at the bottom there to some free trial licenses for customers. This has been like the most mammothly requested resource recently. So there is a slight wait on getting access to those free trials, but really do stick it out because it is really worth giving it a try. And if you have any issues, just feel free to ping me. And then, as always, as you would anticipate from us, there is a community that we've adapted to ensure that we bring in the whole project solution into our ecosystem. So there is a dedicated tech community, its own blog and user voice, as you would anticipate, and then also obviously our social media channels. So again, do feel free to jump on over to those. Really worth bearing in mind and getting involved pretty sharpish, particularly those of you that perhaps have been involved in PSA since its acquisition and incorporation into the Dynamics 365 stack. Cool. Now with that, let's move on now to our next unusual topic of the day in terms of customer Insights, or what it used to be called Customer Insights, but now has actually adapted and been renamed to Audience Insights. So for those of you that have tried out Customer or Audience Insights before, what you will know, and forgive me if you already know this, but I just want to make sure everyone's at the same level, is that Audience Insights is really designed to be our customer data platform, to be that central one-stop shop repository for the 360-degree view of a customer. And we're actually kind of agnostic about where that data that's presented in there comes from. The whole point is that multiple data sources can be ingested into Customer Insights and serve up actionable suggestions or insights out of the back of that data that's been ingested. So really new product to our stack, but has had absolutely the most insane amount of investment, which means that it's really accelerated onto the market. And so when we consider other solutions with our customer data platform offering, it's kind of overtaken it within its launch, which is just insane. So your customers, or you may be using other solutions with our friends from Adobe, or even some commercial off-the-shelf offerings for your customer data platform. But Microsoft really now has sort of gone mental and launched hugely quickly and accelerated massively to really help compete with those other offerings. Now, I've kept this slide in because, quite frankly, it has the most insane automation, and I just think paints a really lovely picture. Many of you will be familiar with the lovely Dynamics 365 Wheel of Fortune slide that was used so much when Dynamics 365 was first launched and went online, and it got used a huge amount. And this is probably going to take over from a customer insights perspective. So don't worry, guys, I will make sure you've got something like 350 automations behind it. So really, what's new with Audience Insights is not only have we changed the name and subtly adjusted it from Customer Insights to Engagement Insight, to Audience Insights, but we've also launched Engagement Insights this quarter. And really, the adjustment in the name from customer to audience was to ensure that we didn't really ostracize those of you that perhaps don't consider the people that consume your services or benefit from what you do as customer. Bibbs is being rather controversial in thinking he prefers the name Customer Insights, but I have to disagree with you there, Billy. I actually think Audience Insights says it quite nicely. If we think about, I don't know, membership organizations or charities or all sorts of different other organizations that perhaps don't call their customers customers, Audience, I think, covers it really quite nicely. It includes all of the benefits and features and functionality that Customer Insights had out of the box. It has literally just changed its name. And it has been in GA for a long time. Now, as of this quarter as well, we have launched Engagement Insights, which is a subtle difference to Audience Insights in that rather than analyzing individuals' data, it analyzes their behavioral data to help understand their interactions with us across all channels, be it web, mobile, or connected devices, beacon technology, to really enrich the customer or the audience member profile to give these kind of multi-dimensional signals. So it might be that, if we think about a retail environment, that they've walked to a certain area of a store, or they've spent a certain amount of time in a specific area, or indeed they've spent a specific amount of time on a certain place in your app. All of this data from multiple different sources can be ingested into Engagement Insights and subsequently into Audience Insights to help us find really kind of detailed, actionable output from what we know about our customers and our audience members. I will get in the habit of saying that. Flow, Power Automate. So for those of you that are already using Customer Insights, when you first log in now, again, you may have already noticed this. You'll now be guided to which experience do you want to go from. Do you want to come from an audience perspective or understand the engagement and the behavioral activity perspective? So quite simple. And in terms of what's new in the Audience Insights this wave, well, there is a huge amount, as I mentioned right at the start. It's got like the biggest amount of investment that we've ever seen on any one of our Dynamics 365 products. And it's some of the key things I really want to sort of pull out is that we've kind of matured the solution. So now we can do things like copy environments so we can back them up and create and reset instances. We can now create triggers for refreshes, so our data more commonly. And there's a whole bunch of new banners and alerts on the homepage of each audience member. There's also a huge amount of a new investment that's gone into our AI model for subscription churn. So if you've got some kind of subscription-based solution or product or offering, we can help best understand when one of our audience members is likely to churn or not, and do things like we can enrich data with our lovely partners at Experian to help do some validation, perhaps know your customer type journey experiences. And therefore ultimately drive these more meaningful actions with confidence. So we've got a new digital marketing center for exporting the data that we get out of customer insights into whatever you use for your automated marketing capability. We can push into Google Ads or Facebook Ads Manager or even things like MailChimp. And I think the final point on that top right-hand corner section is the ability to now extend the outbound connectors with Logic apps. So if for whatever reason you're using some sort of automated marketing solution or engagement solution that we don't have a connector for, we can, you can use the extensibility of Logic apps, the granddaddy of Power Automate, to really help drive that action outside of just interpreting that data. And we've plugged a whole bunch more insight into our security. I think security for us as an organization all up is a huge focus, but it's become even bigger in the most recent weeks. And we will see a whole bunch more announcements in the coming months around our investment into security, not only driven out of the back of where we see ourselves working from home and having to provide our users with greater ability to provide secure experiences to their customers, but the ever increasing need for secure data. And that does not stop at audience or engagement insights. So let's drill down now into what is engagement insights. Well, as I briefly touched on earlier, it really is about connecting the journeys that our customers, our partners, of our audience as an organization or our customers organization, to better understand what it is they're doing from an engagement standpoint on our environment. And I've popped in a couple of architectural slides here, which I'm just going to build out to help really paint the picture of how engagement insights, can drive better understanding of what our audience members are doing. So as you can see, we can plug in all sorts of different elements of data, be it through our Dynamics 365 first-party apps, by using Power Automate, or even our SDK into our engagement insights engine. And then we run that analytical engine over the top of it using Stream Analytics to really help drive that actionable insights. We can layer over profiles and activities and even provide specific segments from a marketing standpoint, hugely vital to help us understand which bits of our audience are interacting, which demographic they fall in, which region, whatever it may be, to really help drive that actionable output. And it automatically sits directly on top of Dynamics 365 marketing, thanks to the lovely CDS. I'm really going to struggle to get into the habit of saying Dataverse, Data Flexiverse, whatever, Chris, you'll have to remind me of the full phrase, to really help respond in as near real time as possible to what we know about what our audience are doing, and really drive that much more personalized, tailored experience to our consumers. So in short, what I would urge you to do out the back of this very brief overview of audience and engagement insights is get started ASAP with public previews. So you can quite quickly and easily integrate for ingestion your own website, use the out-of-the-box reports to help understand the key metrics in a sort of similar way to I imagine you're doing with other tools already. And then deep dive into the custom report builder to really help understand a little bit more detail around some of the measurements that you could put in there. And then the customer journey thing I think is vital. Who's doing what when? They taking to get there? I did this recently on a little website that I host myself, and I was shocked and amazed to see the kinds of journeys that people take. I think I made some fairly unconscious decisions on what I felt they were doing, and actually this really highlighted to me what truly was happening on that site, where they were going. And it really does then encourage and disrupt my mindset on how we're going to take the roadmap of that site. And all in all, you'll be able to create those multi-dimensional profiles of your audience based on their engagement insights. So with that, thank you so much for your time. I'll pop in some links in the chat once I've handed over to Kaila to get you started on those public preview scenarios for audience and engagement insights. So thank you for having me. You'll hear from me a little bit later on, but for now, I shall hand over to Kaila to give you an update on all things F&O.
Lucy, just quickly before you hand over, thank you for that. Can I ask a quick question that came up in the chat?
Please do, absolutely.
So it was about project, whatever we're calling it now, project something or other, which was from Jane Howell, is how does this work with Dynamics 365 project app, which I guess is project services. So you can obviously, PSA, I mean, project service automation.
Absolutely.
Do these things interact? I know there's some other project applications around as well. Project operations is it? I don't know much about. Can any of you talk about that in a bit more?
Absolutely. I think what I would guide Jane to look at is that project plan comparison. That kind of covers off all of the kind of almost like the decision-making chart on when you would choose one product over the other and how they interact with each other, a little bit like Dataverse for Teams and Dataverse. So I'll pop that link in the chat now.
Perfect.
And then what I'll do is I'll go off and find Jane and sort of a simple description of how it all works together so you can sort of better understand that.
Fantastic, thank you. And we didn't check beforehand. Are we good to share these slides or not?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Okay, cool. So because there's lots of links in there, so we can share the slides through the D365 UG website after the event. That's fine. Thanks very much, Lucy.
It is worth quickly saying as well, Project for Web is included in the project operations licenses now as well. So it's part of the functionality you get with project operations. You get access to Project for Web for those users. So they are trying to align and allow them to be used together. Sort of.
Very good. Thanks. I can see you've got something on your slide there at the bottom about project operations. Great stuff. All right. Thanks, Kaila.
Yeah, so bear with me because my internet feels like it's been a bit jippy. So give me a shout if I start breaking up or breaking out. What I'm going to try and focus on, especially because we're running out of time, is the real key differences from the last chat that we all had, or some things that I know are really hot topics or pain points. So when I talk about cross-app capabilities, this is purely on the basis that finance, supply chain, commerce, and what is more broadly known as PMA, the accounting arm of project operations, it's because they still sit on one platform, which is not the Dataverse platform. So when we talk about core app capabilities, this is a capability that has been provided or is being provided to all of those in some form or another. Data lake integration, there's not a massive amount to say in the sense that it's still planned for release across all data centers globally, ready for March. And there's still many that don't have access to it because the rollout is still happening, which is a bit of a gut, but unfortunately something we can't help with. The other thing to say with this is when we talk about the data integration, everyone wants to think, oh, it's the big bang, it's everything. We can have the full data, whether it's broken down into entity structure or what we would used to have called, a financial accounting structure. That's not quite yet. What Microsoft is actually doing here is they're breaking it down into smaller bits and still just putting the header of data lake integration. So there will be more functionality that you don't get in March. That's going to be then pushed into the next waves that are coming later. So all I can ever advise, and people do ask me about this a lot, just go and have a try and have a look, because there's a vaguity in what's being released when it's coming in GA on purpose, because I think it's been a bit more complicated than they wanted to admit to. Dataverse integration, or CDS, there's a lot of really cool things coming here actually, and some that have been sorely missed. So party or global address book functionality is one of the reasons why integrating finance and operations to anything CE has been a nightmare from the start, because of our legal entity structure, which is managed predominantly with the global address book. That's actually now finally coming. That's December. Activities and notes is more the attachments. That's finally coming as well. And the price engine for commerce. So absolutely brilliant. That's finally coming. And they finally pulled that out. There will be more to come. I've been purposely vague around the project operations stuff. They're not really giving too much information about how much data they're actually getting up and running for that, for the PSA to the accounting arm of what is now project operations. The support experience, and there's a lot going on when it comes to what we're doing, and I will say some things here that I will never be allowed to be held accountable to. They are aligning everything when it comes to environment management and support for the two separate platforms, as Finance Operations, CE and Power Platform, where the end goal is a single admin center, a single support experience for all of them. The current statement on what's going to win, the Power Platform centers, the new Power Platform centers are the ones that are winning. So if in the future you start hearing things about functionality that used to be in legacy CE portals, which we already know are going, and also lifecycle services, moving into the Power Platform Admin Center, don't be surprised. I've officially pre-warned you. There's a massive amount of work going on in the product group to give one experience across the two platforms, and project operations is a big push for that, right? Because of the complicated deployment model at the moment and where that works. RSAT, for anyone who is under CE, I've already said before, we are starting to get automated testing coming in for model-driven apps and things like that. Massive investment still. There's a new interface coming out in December 2020. Watch this space. There's also investment in getting this working on portals and app services, which also relates to the e-commerce tool and add-on that we need to get up and running for. So there's a lot going on there. And anyone who's finance and operations, if you've never used it, how the hell have you never used it? It's literally mandatory for go live. If you're still getting away with going live without having it up and running, then don't expect that to happen for very much longer. And also electronic invoicing. So this is about a move to, stop doing paper-based SSRS reports. Massive amount of investment in the electronic reporter tool, which is being extended into invoicing for finance and supply chain, which is pretty much document transformation. So this is going to upset some ISVs that Microsoft are doing that. I don't know how good the functionality is. It's now coming out in public preview, so just give it a go. They haven't notified a GA date yet, but that's probably because they don't know how good it really is, realistically. Finance, the biggest thing is asset leasing. So everyone will be like, that sounds really boring. But this is actually quite cool in the sense that asset management has been a massive gap for us with the finance and operations stack historically. They are also going out of their way to having it work a little bit more alongside sort of the CE platforms. So when you talk about anything with asset management or your supply chain, everything they're building now is in line with being able to be capable to work with supply chain, field service, etc. And also enhanced email automation. To be honest, when I looked at this, I thought, oh, well, it's always been there. You've always been able to batch out emails. So we'll see on that one. Supply chain, this one I thought was quite massive, but that's because I'm a bit of a financial nerd. Intercompany, for anyone who doesn't know, is the fact of I am Coca-Cola, but I have a UK branch and I have a France branch. We sell stock to each other and we have to understand each other's stock needs so we can go and actually manufacture that. Supply chain, finally, in preview now, has the ability to forecast intercompany demand. So this means that as a UK branch, I can go in and use the data that's in my French legal entity and start forecasting the demand that comes from that. Really, really cool. The fact that it's coming out, it's in preview, really good. And obviously ongoing enhancements in investment in guides, using guides, integrating that with supply chain, just to be able to be honest, it looks cool. It's great for sales. And it can unlock efficiencies in your supply chain that you didn't know. Project operations, I'll just hit off really, really quickly. I'm not covering a massive amount. It's just to say the estimate for the upgrade path for PSA to Project Ops is still in March. They haven't delayed it yet. I've not heard any rumours about it being delayed or having issues, so it should still be okay. Commerce, this is by far at the moment the most massive amount of investment of all of the changes that we've had in this wave. The e-commerce site has had massive upgrades again with new modules and components to build out the look and feel of that site. All of the enhancements are coming out between October and February. We've got the ability for experimentation. The PayPal integration is now officially out. Gift card purchase, that's coming. Why did it take till January? I don't know. But abandoned cart functionality also to make sure that you can get a better understanding of why your customers aren't finalising their payments, why aren't they finalising their transactions, why aren't they continuing on the purchase for this. So commerce, this is just a snapshot of the, if you looked at the guide for everything that I'm talking about, there's the most is going on there. It's when Microsoft are hedging their bets at the moment, and that is purely because we're moving to a market where brick and mortar stores are not going to be the focus for next year. Companies are realising that anyone who has an online presence is by far the ones that are winning out of the pandemic that are going on. So all of the money, all the investment is there. And if you want to understand where you should hedge your bets to, I think you could probably argue that Microsoft have got a good idea. Can I go to the next slide, please, Lucy? So only thing I didn't mention, human resources. You will probably all feel like this is the most painful app of the entire BizApp suite. And I will absolutely admit that because I feel like it too. But, they're trying, the investment is trying. You will see some things that are missing here that you expected to be here. You'll see things that are here that you didn't expect to be here. Unfortunately, the product group and the engineering teams did get impacted by what's going on at the moment. So they have had to delay a couple of items that they definitely didn't want to delay. But also they've tried to then compensate for that by bringing forward stuff that you want and need. So I've tried to break it down into some things that may interest you, don't know. Is it still the most marketed competitive human resources tool independently? Arguably not. I still get a bit scared when someone says they've sold it to this, I don't know, this customer, and I think, oh, for God's sake, I'm going to have to deal with that. But, there's a lot. Benefits management, everything that's coming out, finally getting proper notifications for benefits coming out in March. Custom fields, finally, March. The benefits management workspace comes in GA in February, which makes it much, much more easier, and to be honest, the look and feel much better. Self-service Teams comes out in GA in February, a bit later than I think anyone wanted, but it is coming in February. And also the ability to add external custom links to ESS to manage self-service. That's from December, so that's really handy. Ultimately, to be honest, to be able to have access to your internal sites for documentation. Leave and absence, the enhanced leave calendar views is a really big thing that was needed. That came in October. The cross-company view for managers, really, really important, really interesting. Human resources is usually cross-legal entity. We moved it to more legal entity focused, impacted a lot of firms, so we're giving that broader view again from January. Lots of enhancements to the leave balance views, also massively wanted, and leave and absence workflow enhancements to make them much more flexible. So there's a lot coming. It's unfortunately not October, this is the point, it all got pushed back, but they should still come in and all in this wave. The data first integration is a massive pain point as well for human resources. Sometimes it's a bit jippy. They did just release some new enhancements to try and get that working properly. The LinkedIn Talent Hub, December, I don't think many people are going to care because there's still the limit on how many employees your customer can have to be able to use the Talent Hub. That's still tiny. The payroll API coming in January is going to massively help. And recruitment. We binned off recruitment. We binned off the recruitment app. We're now bringing APIs to allow easier e-recruitment integration. So this is coming back to the middle ground of trying to fix the fact that, oh my God, you did recruitment, you binned recruitment. Okay, now we're going to make it a little bit easier. So they're trying. They are trying. There's a lot of work going on. It's a little bit behind schedule, but there's still some really cool stuff coming. But that's it for me. So I'll hand back to Lucy, I think.
No, you are mute.
I can't hear you, Lucy.
Testing.
Sorry, guys.
There we go.
Can you hear me now? Sorry, guys. Huge apologies. Headset has got memory issues and forgets it's a headset. Right, so thank you so much, Kayla. Really appreciate that. I'm, for one, really excited to hear that payroll is firmly on the roadmap from an API perspective. That has been uberly long awaited. Now, I just left this slide in towards the end because I know that it went down well last time and thought that it would round out the session nicely, just to kind of give you that overview. But before we leave you to the rest of the fantastic agenda that Andrew has put on, many of you know that Chris, Kayla, Gina, and a whole bunch of others of us at Microsoft host a monthly community call where we give you updates on all sorts of things from a product roadmap perspective, all the way through to promotions, updates, partner offers, you name it. And this month is no different. So we are hosting it this Friday at 1 o'clock. If you use the link aka.ms/BA for BizApps, BA add to calendar, it will automatically download the recurring meeting invite for you, so you will never forget the date. So grab some lunch. And this week, we want to hear specifically about some of the positive good news stories that you have got for 2020. And we know that there are some out there. And what we're going to do is essentially take your submissions. You can pop the details on the /BizApps Good News link. We will read them as a team and we will showcase some of the better ones. So essentially, we want to bring the community together for the final call of the year and help round out the year on a much more positive note than perhaps we started it on. So do feel free to submit any ideas that you might have, but do just bear in mind that we will potentially be sharing your ideas with the rest of the community call and everyone that attends, which is everyone from customers to partners to other Microsofties. So do feel free to share your good news with us and use the hashtag BizAppsXmas for keeping up to speed and joining in the conversation on Twitter. We will also be doing a festive scavenger hunt and a holiday trivia quiz. So I can literally hear the excitement from your side. Do not miss it. We are so looking forward to having you there. And with that, I'd like to say a massive thank you to the D365 UG 2020 annual speakers. Sponsors. I will get my words right today at some point. I'll probably be in the next 3 minutes. Thank you so much for all you do. We're really grateful for you to help us host these kind of events with the lovely Andrew Bibby. And with that, thank you so much for attending. We've got literally 3 minutes for questions, so feel free to raise your hand, pop it in the chat.
Guys, what I'm going to say is if people want to put their questions in the chat, then we can absolutely get to them. I think people are starting to leave to go to the other meetings now. So I just want to say massive thank you to Chris and Lucy and Kayla for another excellent session. There's obviously so much to fit into that session. So it's always quite long and there's loads of information to digest, but we'll share the slides. But can we come off mute and give these guys a round of applause, please? That'd be great.
Thanks, everyone. Have an awesome day.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Andrew, massively good agenda. Hugely impressed.
There's loads and loads of good sessions, aren't there? Yeah, I'm really looking forward to some of these because I'm going to be joining some and asking questions as well. So next up, we have got a session by Alexio on how to get into Power Platform and join the community. We've got a session from Stefano Tempesta, newly of Microsoft. He's an absolute rock star of a speaker. So he's talking about Dynamics 365 and SharePoint security, always a problem. And then we've got Dinesh talking about chatbots with Power Platform as well. So if you have any questions about which session you need to join, drop it in the chat. But just thanks very much to the guys from Microsoft once again for taking the time to put this session on. Thank you. Okay, so time to switch over to other sessions. Let me stop the recording.